There is a house in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona, where yellow flowers have been accumulating for over 2 months now. They are left by people who never met the woman who lived there, by neighbors who cannot explain what happened, by strangers who drove hours to leave something at a gate because doing nothing felt worse. Nancy Guthrie lived in that house. She is 84 years old. She spent more than 5 decades in the Tucson area, raised 3 children, mostly on her own, after losing her husband when he was 49, and built a life that was quiet and private and almost entirely insulated from the kind of attention that has descended on her neighborhood since the morning of February 1st, 2026. She has been missing since that morning. Today is day 69. Her daughter, Savannah, one of the most recognizable faces in American television journalism, went back to her anchor desk this week for the first time since her mother disappeared. She said it was good to be home. She moved through the broadcast the way professionals do, holding herself together on screen because that is the job, and because collapsing in front of millions of viewers would not bring her mother home any faster. No one watching that broadcast could miss what it cost her. The search for Nancy Guthrie has not produced a suspect. It has not produced a confirmed location. It has not produced proof of life. But it has produced something that sometimes matters just as much in cases that resist resolution: sustained attention. People who are still asking questions, experts who are still offering analysis, and a family that has refused, through every week of silence, to stop. This week brought new developments, not answers, but new developments. And this is where the case stands today. Nancy was taken from her home in the early hours of February 1st. Her son-in-law had dropped her off the evening before. A masked figure appeared at her front door at 1:47 in the morning on doorbell camera footage released by the FBI. The camera was physically disabled. Blood confirmed to be hers was found on the front steps. Her medication, her phone, and her purse were left inside. At 2:28, her pacemaker stopped transmitting. No one saw her leave. No one knows where she went. No one has publicly confirmed whether she is alive. Nancy Guthrie has now been missing longer than most people in America remember high-profile missing persons cases lasting before something breaks. 69 days with no named suspect is not a reflection of limited effort. By almost every public account, investigators have worked hard and worked long. But effort and results are not the same thing. And this week, the gap between them became harder to ignore. A forensic profiler who spent her career inside the FBI's world of criminal behavioral analysis offered a new lens for understanding why this case has been so difficult. Dr. Ann Burgess, whose research helped shape the methodology that modern investigators use to profile violent criminals, looked at what is publicly known about this case and saw something she said has not been adequately explored. She called it personal cause. In cases where the motive is personal, the act does not fit a financial template cleanly. The person responsible is not primarily after money. They are after something that only this particular act against this particular family can give them: satisfaction, retribution, a settling of something they have been carrying for a long time. She talked about grievances that last years, about people who experience a loss, professional, personal, something they believe was caused by someone else and do not let it go, who carry it quietly while their anger becomes more precise, more directed, more patient. She said that when the FBI's behavioral analysis unit looks at a case, one of the first questions it asks is this: who in the victim's orbit has a reason? Not a reason visible in the last few weeks, a reason that might be years old, a reason that the people closest to this family might not immediately think to volunteer because it seems too far back, too small, too long ago to be relevant. Nothing, she said, is too far back. Nothing is too small, not in cases like this. She also said that the Bitcoin ransom demand cannot be taken at face value as proof of financial motive. It could have been exactly what it appeared: a demand for money, or it could have been something more deliberate. a way of sending investigators toward cryptocurrency trackers and blockchain analysts, while the real trail, the personal one, was allowed to go cold. She noted that people who genuinely want ransom money tend to stay in contact after a deadline passes. They adjust the demand. They push again. They do not simply go silent. The original note writer went silent after the second deadline passed. They have not communicated since. What happened with those original ransom notes, the two that arrived in the first week of February demanding $4 million and then $6 million, is now clearer than it has been since this case began. The FBI assessed them as likely authentic. That assessment was communicated to the family. Savannah Guthrie, in a public statement, said she tended to believe those first two notes were real. That belief, this week's reporting confirmed, was grounded in what law enforcement told her family. The family was ready to pay. They did not pay, at least not the full amount, because investigators believed at the time that they had a method of tracing the Bitcoin wallet address listed in the original notes. A small deposit was made into that account, reportedly less than $300, as part of an attempt to track whoever received it. The attempt did not succeed. What followed was silence. The deadline passed. The note writer disappeared. No further demand, no proof of life, nothing. 7 weeks later, new notes are arriving, but from a different source. An individual who is not claiming to be the abductor, but claiming to have knowledge of who the abductors are, has now sent at least 4 communications to a national media organization. This week, 2 more arrived. One stated that Nancy Guthrie is dead. The other claimed the sender had seen her alive in Sonora, Mexico. Both have been forwarded to the FBI. Neither has been authenticated. The person behind these notes has been persistent in a way that analysts noted is somewhat unusual for a straightforward scam. In one earlier message, this source wrote that time was of the essence. The next day, the same source said time was no longer of the essence. That reversal is the opposite of how scammers operate. They maintain pressure. They do not remove it. Whether this person has anything genuinely useful, investigators have not said. What the Mexico angle means for this case is still unresolved. On February 10th, law enforcement conducted a search in Rio Rico, Arizona, 60 miles south of Tucson and approximately 10 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border crossing at Nogales. A person of interest was detained and released. No connection to the case was established. But the location of that search, on the same day FBI footage was released to the public, points south. Investigators do not go 60 miles from a crime scene without a reason. And Sonora, across that border, is a region where the tools available to U.S. law enforcement become significantly harder to use. Here is something that most coverage of this case has not said directly. Nancy Guthrie has a pacemaker. When she was taken, she was in her pajamas, without her shoes, without her phone, without her medication. Her medication was left inside the house in its bottles. She is 84 years old and requires a specific daily regimen to maintain her health. Every day that passes is not just a day without answers. For a woman with her medical profile, every day without proper care is a day that carries its own weight. Investigators and experts who have spoken publicly about this case in recent weeks have, with increasing frequency, framed their analysis around recovery rather than rescue. A retired founding member of the NYPD's K-9 unit said this week that he predicted very early in this case that Nancy Guthrie did not survive the abduction. He said he believes the search has shifted to recovery, whether law enforcement has publicly acknowledged that shift or not. He made that observation not with satisfaction, but with the kind of bluntness that comes from decades of work in exactly these circumstances. He has seen cases like this before. He knows what a 69-day gap without proof of life typically means when the victim is 84 and medically dependent. And then he said something that reframed what investigators still have the power to do. He said that locating Nancy Guthrie, even in the worst possible outcome, would mean locating evidence. It would mean finding a second crime scene, a place where physical traces of whoever moved her were left behind. DNA, fibers, biological material, a chain of evidence that could lead directly back to the Catalina foothills on the night of January 31st. He said detection dogs should have been deployed from the first day. He said the sheriff's decision to hold them back was, in his professional judgment, one of the most consequential early failures in this investigation. He said even now, at day 69, a properly organized grid search with cadaver detection teams could produce results that no other investigative tool currently deployed has been able to find. He was not theatrical about it. He was not looking for blame. He was looking at a case where a family is still waiting, where a woman has been missing for more than 2 months, and asking why the most proven search tool in cases like this one is still not being fully used. The sheriff, questioned this week, said no mistakes were made. He said his department has worked with dedication and will continue to do so. The Pima County Board of Supervisors said this week they want answers about his leadership, his work history, his budget management, and a 2024 incident at Tucson's airport where TSA screeners found a loaded, undeclared gun in his carry-on bag. He was not charged. He secured the weapon and continued his travel on a later flight. The recall effort against him continues. There is a particular cruelty in cases like this one that does not fit neatly into crime reporting. Nancy Guthrie was not a public figure. She did not choose to become the center of a national story. She had lived a private life in the Arizona desert for 5 decades, gone to church on Sunday mornings, played mahjong, watched her children grow into people she was proud of. She ordered her own Uber rides. She liked her independence. She had built something worth protecting, and she had every reason to believe the house in the Catalina foothills was safe enough to protect it. She was wrong. Not because she made a mistake, because someone chose to take her. Her daughter came back to work this week. Savannah Guthrie sat down at her anchor desk and said the words professionals say when they go back. "It's good to be here. Let's get to the news." And the camera stayed on her just long enough for anyone paying attention to understand what was underneath that composure. She had said what needed to be said weeks earlier in a raw moment with a colleague. "I am so sorry, Mommy. If any of this came to her because of me, I am so sorry." That is a sentence that a daughter should never have to say. That her mother may have become a target because of her public visibility is a weight that no investigative update, no expert theory, and no forensic development can lift. The investigation continues. The DNA analysis is active. Blockchain forensics remain in progress. The border corridor has not been ruled out. The ransom notes are being evaluated. The reward stands. The flowers outside the house in the Catalina foothills keep accumulating. Yellow ones, mostly. Left by people who never met Nancy Guthrie and who have no idea whether she will ever come home. The family keeps waiting. The investigation keeps going. If you know anything at all about what happened on the night of January 31st in the Catalina foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit your information anonymously at tips.fbi.gov. The $1 million reward from the Guthrie family remains active. Tips can be submitted anonymously. Nancy has been missing for 69 days. She deserves to be found.